Good evening. My name is Alexander Hagan. I'm the CEO of a small, medium-sized tech company in Silicon Valley and have previously been a financial journalist and financial analyst. Tonight, I want to speak to you about Randy Shannon uh, deciding that the United States government is actually a corporate entity and not a government along the lines of our original Constitution, and her joining an alternative government called the Republic of the United States of America. And in her case, she had felt that since the Civil War, the U.S. had dissolved its obligation to honor its Constitution and had become a corporatized, co-opted government. For me, the nail in the coffin was the Patriot Act, not the Civil War. Um, the merits of the Civil War are not my problem right now. Um, but I do think that the idea of opt-in government is extremely important to look at 21st century alternate governance structures. So, for example, in the United States, we have two basic ways that votes are containerized. One is essentially a two-party system where even the Federal Elections Commission is basically run by the two parties. And then secondly, regionalizing. But now in a globally interconnected world, the idea of people voting because they're in the same area physically as somebody else is something that should be re-examined. So the first step we could do towards that is to have a chamber of government, the real House of the People, such as we have now, the U.S. House of Representatives, should allow people, at least half of them, to be voted for regardless of where they are. And then the other half could be voted based on regionalism, for example. That would allow us to have essentially a mixed parliamentary system, so that you could vote for somebody like Ron Paul and that he could get elected regardless of any one specific district supported him and a group of people who are like-minded. So you could have smaller parties or smaller or other minority points of view to have a voice. So alternate opt-in government is a goodness. And think, for example, free private education. It would be truly free because it would be opt-in, it would be non-compulsory. It's not an easy thing to do, but it's not hard to do better than the current construct. And part of this is to look at sustainability too. So this is a hippie thing, but it can also work just fine for a libertarian. So sustainable economy means that you can drive work to zero if people have equity. Because if you're the owner of a business, the business becomes highly profitable. Your participation is really because you have equity. So as less and less work is required to make money, you benefit and the other stockholders benefit. So if the people are the stockholders, then you can drive work to zero without quote unquote unemploying people, because people are already going to be doing things based on their interests rather than their needs if there's an equity approach, because most of the economy is fluff: finance, insurance, real estate, corrections, military, a lot of other layers of bureaucracy. Their employment programs, but they don't actually make things. So in fact, the things are out there waiting for those people: the houses, the land, the food, and they're not actually making any of it. They're just consuming it. So you could give it to them, and they could all do nothing, because the full employment concept leads to bloat. Um, So now Chris Mathews was laughing on his show about this idea of this kooky alternative government. But these people are so loosely educated to not see the parallel. In Britain, a shadow government is formed every time by the party that's out of power. And the idea of any party can form a shadow government to represent the ministerial policy. So you would have your own voice about what you think defense policy should be in your shadow government. Now, in terms of considering the government illegal or something along those lines, of course, that is different. So I personally believe that, as I said, the United States dissolved its social contract with its people with the Patriot Act, because the Patriot Act walked all over the entire Bill of Rights. And so from my point of view, the Union was dissolved, and I jokingly call the new construct, the new entity which rules the United States, the Correctional Military Corporation of Central North America. So my kudos to Randy Shannon for having the interest and the drive to get this issue out there. And but I don't agree that we should have no regulations, as is part of the libertarian concept. Although I do believe it should be constitutional, I think we should have a constitutional aspect of our Bill of Rights and our Constitution that would limit political donations to 10% of the average American salary, which at the moment might be $3,000 or $4,000. And corporations aren't people, so we don't need corporations talking in our political discourse directly. They have plenty of other means without these political action committees. And I also believe the FCC should still require equal time for all registered candidates. And if somebody, the idea of just Democrat and Republican, though, has, as Jesse Ventura said, led to this gang, these two gangs that run our countries. And we're not allowed to vote for anybody else. So we need to expose this duopoly for what it is. It's a deeply co-opted system that makes it very hard for people to express their voices as it's constructed today. We have basically boiled down to 5 companies in most industries or less. There's 5 big investment management companies: BlackRock, Fidelity, State Street, and then there's a couple others, and there's the 5 networks, which are presently, CBS, ABC, NBC, which are owned by General Electric, by Disney, and by this guy, Sumner Rothstone, and Redstone, sorry. He was originally Sumner Rothstein, and he's the principal investor. So there are 5, and then there's CNN, which is owned by Time Warner, and then there's Fox, of course. And so all of them are almost impossible to buy, or for just to be run as news organizations, because they're owned by these giant conglomerates. GE makes drones. We have 5 major defense contractors, and they all own each other. So the people who own these own equal amounts in all of them, sort of like an index fund. But in this case, it's an indexed fund that has completely strangled our economy. It's just unbelievable, the amount of financial fraud that's been undertaken, the magnitude of the fraud, what they call hazard. What is it they call moral hazard, when they're committing mass felonies on a scale of hundreds of thousands, playing with a Libor interest rate. These people should be doing 20, 100-year prison sentences. Why should a guy rob a liquor store and have to go to prison for 10 years? And these bastards aren't in there for 10,000. And why are they allowed to, why don't they prosecute a single one of these bastards? And why does Chris Mathews get to decide why any alternate point of view is kooky? Who is in control of reality anyway? So that's about all I have for you tonight. Thank you. Good night and good luck.